Here is another collection of strange stories, incidents you think it might be made up somehow. These Reddit users share their strange and glitchy experiences with us. Have your story featured in my next collection, and send it to storyscary152@gmail.com. And don't forget and subscribe, hit the bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded. I'm crypticmastery on Reddit, playing the game Simulation Theory. Maybe we are all just playing the physical reality game. Literally, a simulation. God or Prime Creator is the master programmer, and we are all just players in God's game, i.e., we are part of, an aspect of, reflection of God. Nothing is actually solid, it is just programmed to appear that way in this particular experience. This would mean that every other player in the game is actually just another version of you, because we are made up of seemingly separate pieces of essentially the same one thing. This way God gets to experience itself in infinite ways. You can't actually die permanently, you can just return to a broader perspective or God consciousness or respawn back into this game as a baby or move on to a completely different type of reality game. I also had a thought that there are other aspects of God's consciousness playing your character in a slightly different way, as in other versions of you doing slightly different things, other versions of Earth where things are slightly different or a lot different. Because it's all just a simulation, all things become possible, because the programmer wants to experience all possibilities, all possible simulated realities, multiple parallel reality theory. What if it was possible in this game to shift our consciousness to other versions of Earth, other versions of ourselves, either consciously or unconsciously? If you make a drastic change, quit the job you hate and do that thing you always wanted to do, you become another version of you, and maybe there's a version of you in the simulation that stuck with the same old job and was more miserable. I think there are general rules to this game like gravity, certain laws of physics, etc. And I think the theme of this game is exploring negativity and positivity, and transforming to a generally more positive stimulation. Although physical reality may not be real, I feel the experience is definitely real, and we can learn and grow and expand from this experience, and that I think is the whole point of it. We as God, infinite consciousness, created different levels of ourselves in which to play, explore and expand creation. We from higher levels created all these simulations. The seemingly physical universe is one of the infinite possibilities of simulated realities. There are other types of simulations which are nothing like this. If you told some other beings that we lived on giant solid balls floating through space, they would think it was absurd. Imagine this if you can, as there is another universe or simulation out there, in another dimension that the space is solid, and there are balls or bubbles of empty space, where the beings live on the inside of the giant bubbles utilizing a kind of reverse gravity effect. I'm ManF2000 on Reddit. Have I Mandela effect experience or symptoms? Do you experience Mandela effect and also experience any of the things listed below? I posted this to the other sub a while back. Thought I would give it a shot on here. I've added some things I forgot to mention in my first post. I did my best to word the questions in a way that would be understandable. The questions are based on experiences various people have had. I personally do not or have not experienced all of these, only some. Would you care to share your observations and experiences? Have you had any unusual dreams? That seems like they may be related to all the strange going on in the world. Deja vu, do you have it? How often? Did you notice a spike in deja vu around certain years? Have you found coin money in bizarre places? Have you seen people, animals, etc., and then see them again a minute later, in a place that they couldn't have traveled to in the given span of time, perhaps making the same action, rows of the same exact cars? Do your ears ring? How often? Does the ringing warp into a static frequency-like sound? Does it coincide with anything else? Have you had a conversation with friends or family, and you are the only one who remembers the conversation? Was the conversation Mandela effect related? Have you noticed time behaving oddly? For example, if you are starting a TV show, you glance at the clock purposely or otherwise. You know the general or exact time the show should end. When it does, more time has passed or less time has passed. Enough time to be considered odd. Did or does your cell phone freeze a lot or jump time? Say AM when it's PM and vice versa, specifically around 2013 to 2014. Do you see repeating numbers, number patterns, not just on the clock, but on car license plates, receipts, etc., on anything really? 1111, 111, 222. 333, 444, 555, 666, 777, 888, 999, 1234, 123, 911, 119, 116, 322, 223, etc. Do you have an awareness of synchronicities that seem to happen often? A couple of years ago, specifically 2015, 2017, or recently, did you notice a reduction in static electricity? Street light interference, SLI, is a term coined by paranormal author Hilary Evans to denote the claimed ability of individuals to turn street lights or outside building security lights on or off when passing near them. Have you noticed a bright light coming through a window, etc.? That doesn't seem to have a source. Were you in a gifted class or program or long-term study as a child in school? Have you ever done a mall study? Were you inquisitive as a child and later in life? Always questioning the world around you. How? When? What? Where? Why? The general answers to your questions always left you wanting a further explanation. Are you an empath? Empaths are highly sensitive, finely tuned instruments when it comes to emotions. They feel everything, sometimes to an extreme. Intuition is the filter through which they experience the world. Empaths are naturally giving, spiritually attuned, and good listeners. The trademark of empaths is that they know where you're coming from. If empaths are around peace and love, their bodies assimilate these and flourish. Negativity, though, often feels assaultive and exhausting. When empaths absorb the impact of stressful emotions, it can trigger panic attacks, depression, food, sex and drug binges, and a plethora of physical symptoms that defy traditional medical diagnosis from fatigue to agoraphobia. Do you have insomnia? Have you had sleep paralysis? Have you had a near-death experience? I'm JarOfPickeldBums on Reddit, the strange entity in my house. Okay, so I want to preface by saying that I don't meditate. I have tried a few times, but have never been able to get into the habit of it. The reason for the bit about meditation is because they talk a lot about seeing entities while meditating, and I wanted to clarify that this wasn't that. I'd like to try again, but I haven't for a few years. I have suffered from sleep paralysis for most of my life, although that stopped when I hit around 31. I've been able to achieve lucid dream states. I've always thought that I was able to sense certain things. But other than that, I don't really spend time thinking about or researching anything about this sort of thing. I've had 2 other incidences in this house, other than the frequent sleep paralysis that I used to experience. But both happened in the middle of the night, and I have attributed them to sleep hallucinations or night terrors. The other night I was home alone. It was only about 6:30 p.m., but full dark due to the time of year. I'd just gotten out of the shower, and I was a little uneasy in the shower, because I don't like showering at night when I'm home alone. I just have anxiety that someone could break in. Due to my partner's work schedule, I am home alone most nights, and I sometimes get uneasy. Anyways, so I got out of the shower and decided I wanted to make some cookies. I had been stuck home sick for a few days, and was starting to feel better, and I wanted something sweet. I was standing in my kitchen island about to measure out the butter. My living area is open plan, so from my island, I can see the entire living room, and directly across from my spot on the island my cat was curled up in his bed on the far living room wall. I was just looking down at the butter, about to cut into it, when all of a sudden I heard and felt this weird sound. It was like a mix between a reverberation and the buzzing of an insect's wings, but bigger than an insect, and I could feel it. It's really hard to explain, but the sound filled the room in a really weird way that I felt down to my bones. I look up in alarm, and in the passageway between the island and the living room section, I saw this black shadow zoom past really fast towards the dining room, and then sort of saw or felt it zoom around behind me. It wasn't large or shaped like a human. It was around chest height and just sort of a formless black blur. I honestly would have convinced myself that I had imagined this, but my cat, who was right in my line of sight, sat up and tracked the blur thing as well. I saw his pupils get big the way cats do when they see something moving swiftly. As this was happening, the buzzing sound or feeling got more intense, and I had a moment where I just thought, oh shit, this is happening. What, I don't know, but I remember thinking that clearly. And then, as soon as it happened, it was just gone. Like I felt fully alone again, other than my cat. Now I was really spooked out and alarmed, but I never felt true dread or terror. And when it was over, I really felt like whatever it was gone from the room. Afterward, my cat was looking towards the back area of the house for a bit. And then he seemed slightly uneasy, but not actively alarmed. After about 10 minutes, he went back to sleep, albeit not in the fully liquid, relaxed state that he had been in before. I'm hoping someone here might have a possible explanation for what happened. To me, it felt like there was an entity of some kind that was here. If something had gone into me, I'd like to think I would know. I've since gotten myself quite spooked out about it, and I'm nervous for Monday when I'll be home alone again. I know negative feelings are not something I should engage with, but it is easier said than done. Home alone at night, an intense buzzing or reverb sound that filled the rooms, and I felt it to my bones. A black blur zoomed past, the cat saw it too. Over quickly, and it felt like it was gone. I'm Dubase Pagan Witch 222 on Reddit. The wave returns to the ocean. I'm a big fan of the show The Good Place. It's the smartest dumbass show that has ever existed, and the statement above showed up in the last episode of the series, and it changed everything for me when it comes to death. If you believe, as I do, that the soul is made up of source energy, and you also believe that energy is neither created nor destroyed, then, when you pass on, your source energy soul either returns to the source, or it moves along to become something or someone different. A wave exists for merely a moment, and then it is gone, but it's not really gone. It has just returned to the ocean. Though it can have an impact on the shore it finds, it may leave behind shells for hermit crabs to use someday, or to delight a child who finds them. It may knock over a sandcastle, either to the horror or the delight of whomever built it. Sure, it takes time to build a sandcastle, but there is some joy that comes in watching it fall to the might of the ocean. The wave may have caught the eye of a budding photographer, who uses the photo they took to win a contest or to get recognized and start a career. It may have been recorded by a sound engineer whose ambient soundtracks help soothe people to sleep during difficult times. The wave exists and makes an impact, if just in small ways, and then it returns to the ocean. So what is the point if you're just going to return to the source? Well, the point is to decide what impact your wave will make on the world. Unlike the ocean, you have the authority to make a call about that matter. Choose what point you will make with your life, and start making it. I'm Tucsancat on Reddit. I developed major anxiety about death, as well after witnessing my grandparents suffer for years, before dying and having grandma passed away a couple of minutes after coming to visit her. Had random heart palpitation and intense anxiety, mostly when trying to fall asleep. This was almost daily. Also at the same time, I realized that I do not believe in any God or an afterlife, so there was no comfort in that. What helped me was 1. My therapist pinpointing that my anxiety around death was triggered by the suffering I saw, the lack of care and empathy I saw from other people regarding my grandparents' last years and their struggles. He explained to me that death is just a passing moment. That is not the fear that I was describing. It was just a reaction to the suffering I saw, and that was very freeing to realize. 2. I came to terms with the fact that not knowing is okay, and this is very hard to accept. But I don't actually know what happens when I die. I may completely disappear, I may lose conscience, and have my energy scattered around the universe. Part of me may reincarnate in something else and so on. I don't need to have a clear answer, I just accept that it will be a surprise. 3. After coming to terms with my second point, as there is no certitude, I want to make sure that my life is lived with a purpose, and that I am as happy as I can be, and as honest with myself as possible. So I basically developed a more YOLO mentality. These 3 things got rid of my anxiety. It also took around a year to process everything, and also come to terms with the fact that death may imply suffering. On where is my worth on Reddit, and what would be a real sign that somebody is a time traveler? There are a lot of people claiming they are time travelers, yet nobody has solid proof that they are indeed one, and frankly, most of them are fake. But even if they are indeed real, it seems like the burden of proof is too much on the side of people claiming, and it seems like even if you are one, people will judge you first saying you are fake. So what will be the definitive proof to show that you are indeed one if time travel to the past is possible, and you want to show the people of the past that you are indeed real? I'm acerthorn on Reddit, and the water just disappeared off the face of the earth. Before I tell my glitching story, check my gaming channel on YouTube if you're a gamer, and thank you Top Videos for pinning the link to my channel in the comments. It's much appreciated. Okay, so my fridge was malfunctioning yesterday. I was advised to take all the food out and unplug it for 24 hours. So I went to get some ice so I could store my food in a styrofoam cooler. When I got back, the fridge started working again, don't ask me how. Anyway, I left the bag of ice in the styrofoam cooler overnight. When I woke up, most of the ice was gone, as I had expected. But somehow, there was no water in the cooler. There wasn't even any water underneath the cooler. The floor wasn't wet or anything, the water was just gone. Weird. I'm Nameless Drifter 1 on Reddit, and my glitching story is that I think I saw an older version of my mother during my high school graduation in 2015. This is my first time writing this story out, let alone telling anyone else except my mom about it. So it's the year 2015, and after the graduation ceremony and everybody's given their speeches and whatnot, we're all in the parking lot heading home. I was talking with some of my friends out there before heading to the car. So as I start leaving, I notice this woman on her way past my left. I look at her, and she looks a lot like my mother, with the exception of looking maybe between 15 to 35 years older, and with slightly different, almost curled hair. Her hair color was a very faded blonde-brownish in between. Her facial features were extremely similar to my mother's. She was maybe an inch or a couple shorter as well. I stared at her for a good couple of seconds before her gaze met mine and I looked away. Then as she was behind me, I looked one more time. After that, I didn't see my mother's car anywhere, so I sat down and waited in the parking lot. There were these kids that I didn't recognize. It looked like they may have been from another school, but I don't know why they were there. There was this blonde kid who started eyeballing me really intensely as he recognized me from somewhere, but he was trying to figure out who I was. I was a little uncomfortable and was pretending to look like I didn't notice him, but he stared at me for a good while, so eventually I just looked at him and stared back. That's when he looked away. I'm not sure what was up with that dude. Not sure if this had any connection to seeing that woman, but it happened in the same hour. I'm ShutTheFuckUpAmy on Reddit, and I had a really weird dream, marked as NSFW for heavy blood and some nudity. I sort of remember this really weird dream I had about 2 weeks ago. Figured I'd share it here because I wanted to tell someone but didn't think anyone would listen. So in my dream I wake up and almost everything around me is covered in blood. But it wasn't as though someone had been murdered, more like someone poured blood on fabric in layers, which is weird to me now that I think of it. Think of a watercolor painting in splotches. My blankets are covered in it, yet none of it is on me. For some reason, the only thing in this room that matched my room was my bed and the color of the walls. Aside from that, nothing is similar, as there are lavish chairs and a huge chandelier in this lofty, well-lit room. I'm lying completely naked in bed, and suddenly my mom comes into the room I'm in, yelling at me to get up, because we have a huge day ahead of us. I get out, and as soon as I do, the walls are pink for some reason, instead it's grayish-blue. After some weird time skip thing in my dream, pretty sure my brain just wanted to skip to the good parts. I end up in this sort of interior design store that had some similarity to one I had been to about a year ago. However, like my room, it was bigger, fancier, and even more lavish. I remember that I had dressed in clothes earlier in my dream, and yet in this store, I was completely naked again. I'm pretty sure I blinked for 1 second, and the blood from my room had affected the furniture in the store, as there was blood just everywhere. That's where the dream ended, as I was then woken up by my mom telling me to get up so I could go to school. The entirety of this felt like no less than an hour, which is honestly quite crazy to me. I'm OK_supermarket_4519 on Reddit, and what is the difference between abilities and daydreams? Hi. Over the last few years, I've started tapping into my intuition and giving the universe tests to see if I actually have the internal knowings that are often discussed in metaphysical forums. For instance, I was in the drive-thru the other day and saw the man in the car in front of me looking at me in his rear view. Made a comment to myself, if this is real, he'll pay for my meal. This is something that's never happened to me before, so no reason for me to expect it. And got to the window, and he paid for it. So I decided to dig a little deeper and ask Spirit for visual guidance, rather than just the verbal answers that would pop into my head when I asked a question. Since then, when I am praying or laying in meditation, I've been having images come to me that doesn't say anything, but somehow I just know what they represent. I also pray in tongues, so I have absolutely no clue what is being said. I only know who it's about because an image of the individual pops up. For example, to test myself again, I have a guy friend who's clearly not happy in his relationship, but proposed anyway. I asked Spirit to guide me on the situation to see if what I'm told the outcome will be is what it ultimately is. The image is the two of them standing at the altar, facing each other, holding hands and smiling, but she is not in a wedding gown. Both of them have an empty space in their torso, which leads me to believe they're searching to fill a void, but they haven't found it in each other. I then saw a visual of two babies, however the babies jump over him and go straight to her, which to me means that she'll have two children, but they won't be with him. I also focused on a visual of an ex that I have a back and forth with. The visual is him with a black shell around him, but a huge rainbow of bright lights on the inside saying I love you over and over to be. Part of the reason we're not together is because of his poor communication. In this same vision, I got a visual of an older lady, and the name that came through with her who I feel is related to him, but I am not in contact with him to confirm my thoughts. I've always been someone who has visitation dreams but never dealt with visions while awake. What is going on with me? Is this really metaphysical or am I daydreaming? How do I know the difference? I have no idea where to even begin trying to explore this part of me more. I'm cigareatingkyle on Reddit. Me and my girlfriend experience strange sounds. About 2 years ago in December, I and my girlfriend were hanging out in my room. At the same time, we both start hearing a very bizarre, metallic, oscillating sound coming from nowhere. I heard it only in my left ear. My girlfriend said it completely overwhelmed her hearing. I only caught a little bit of this strange noise. This was late at night, and we did smoke a little bit of weed. I've smoked my fair share, and I've never had an audio hallucination like this. After this initial strange noise subsided, then we started faintly hearing old ragtime jazz coming from my sister's room across the hall. We were home alone. The noise faded when we entered her room. Nothing in her room would have produced jazz, like a speaker or whatever. I'm WithdrawnEncephalon on Reddit. I think I traveled through time with 2 friends by my side. This is back when I was in college. A group of us, 4 plus me, were hanging out between classes and headed out to grab a bite. We talked for a bit, and then 2 of the friends announced they had to head back as they had another class. Each class is an hour long. Now with those 2 gone, my other 2 friends and I decided to listen to some music. One of them played You're an Army by Rick Pino. This song is roughly 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. The song ended, and we looked up to find that the 2 friends who has walked away to their class had returned, and we curiously asked, did the class get canceled? They looked at us confused and said, no, we finished the class. Have you been here all this while? All this while. Apparently, as we listened to this 4-minute 30 seconds piece of gospel, an entire hour had gone by. Among the 5 of us, we haven't yet been able to explain what happened. If only my boring lectures lasted 4 minutes 30 seconds and accounted for an hour. I'm zskv on Reddit, and I did a past life regression as a joke, and now weird things are happening. The title is basically also, too long? Didn't read. Some years ago, some friends of mine and I decided to do a past life regression. We didn't take it seriously at all. Plus, I believe in an Abrahamic religion, so I never even consider reincarnation as a viable option. Anyway, while I was doing the guided meditation, I appeared as a greenish, mantis-like being. I could only see my legs as there were no mirrors around. I had backward knees and 2 long toes, and a thumb-like one, and I won't go into incredible detail here unless you want me to. But basically, I saw the mantis planet dying and Earth in its beginning, and finally getting betrayed and killed by being pushed out of a ship. I joked around it with my friends and didn't think about it anymore. Sometime later, I started getting weird dreams. My first one was the longest and most vivid. To shorten it up, some men in suits and hats attached me to some type of machine. I will go into detail later. The second dream I had was completely normal until the end. I was around a supermarket with a friend of mine, unaware of being in a dream when someone from a different room started screaming. Everyone around me, my friend included, started staring at me and saying they're looking for you. At that point, I became aware of my dream and I followed the scream. I entered a room where a guy with completely black eyes did nothing but scream your bread to me. English isn't my first language, so I didn't understand initially, and the more I misunderstood, the louder he would scream. When I got that the word was bread, and not like a piece of bread with the name Brad, then I woke up. Another one I had kind of immediately after. I was in an empty room with only a TV in the middle. I was with a bunch of other people I didn't know. A voice screamed that everything we dreamed about was real, and our first test was to wake up in 60 seconds or we were going to die. Everyone was panicking, but many people managed to wake up. I was able to as well, but then I fell asleep immediately after, and the countdown was still running, so I woke up for good. Anyways, I have many stories like this. The fact is, I can always tell when I'm going to get these dreams because my whole body starts shaking and I can feel myself as if I'm flying away from it. After all of this, I couldn't get myself to believe any of it until recently. I read that other people know about the mantis beings. I don't know what to think, to be honest. So now, this is the dream about the men in black suits and hats. Some time back I had a dream that was so vivid that I can't take it out of my head. I was fully aware of dreaming. I felt my body resting and my eyes being shut, but no matter how hard I tried to open them, they wouldn't. I was walking down the street center of my town, for some reason counting down each step I took, because I knew that each step was equal to a year, since the dream will manifest in real life. At the end of the street, it started raining and everyone around me hid, while shutting their doors in front of me. At that point, I was the only one out. As I knew that I was dreaming, I tried to add an umbrella or change location, but nothing would work. At that point, a black Mercedes pulled up and two men with suits and black hats came out of it. One was extremely pale, almost gray, tall and slender, while the other was short and more chubby. The short one tried to reassure me by saying that they wouldn't hurt me and not to be scared, but I still tried to run away, only to be knocked out by them. I woke up, still in the dream. I was in a dark gray room with no door that looked over a sink. I could see some light coming out of the hallway, but not what was going on there. I remember trying to force myself to wake up and thinking that if it kept going it was going to manifest in real life. At one point, some blood started to be splattered on the sink from the other side of the hallway. Someone was getting tortured because he didn't want to join them. After a while, they came to get me, and the short guy reassured me again that they wouldn't hurt me and not to be scared. They took me to the other room where I noticed the guy who was being tortured full of bandages. They attached the left part of my body to a machine that gave me small electrical shocks, and that was connected to a big screen in the front. After a while, they came back, detached me from the machine, and told me that now I could wake up. So I did. Has anyone had similar dreams before or knows the interpretation of it? I'm always _clear on Reddit. Can dreams act as the gateway to time travel? We have all had moments of déjà vu. I've had dreams as a kid I remember when I woke up, and then forget until that event happens. I know it's probably how our brains work putting patterns together, but I have always wanted to time travel. I remember failing a spelling quiz in the 6th grade nearly 20 years ago and not being upset because we would invent time travel and I could come back and fix it. I was a child, I know that's crazy. I'm just wanting to point out I've always been interested. As we grow older, our imagination wanes. Life gets better, so you don't need our future self to save you. Last night, I had the weirdest dreams. I wasn't me in these dreams. Nothing was familiar, and it wasn't some crazy landscape. I was someone else observing a certain narrative. Then, it would jump. Still the same person, but a different place, etc. I need to keep a dream journal, because I scribbled down some notes when I woke up. It felt weird, but I was hooked. I woke up at midnight, and tried to go back to sleep to experience it again. It wasn't the same. I have never had a dream where I wasn't me, and the dreams seemed to be a message. It seemed like the future is both bleak and hopeful. We do adapt easily. Just having to adapt to that doesn't seem fun. I'm 33, I've never had this type of experience before. It reminds me of déjà vu, or when I would dream something as a kid, and then in the future, that same experience would happen. And you would know what happens next. It's just always been personal. This was far from that. I feel like I saw something meaningful to not just me, but it's fading and I don't know what to do. Has anyone else experienced this, or am I just crazy? I'm Ashley Ann on Reddit. Does anyone have shrinking tongs today? I was cooking a few hours ago when I grabbed a pair of tongs and my daughter pulled out a smaller set that was identical and said, "Look, I didn't know we had baby tongs." We didn't. I bought a pack with 2 that were the exact same size. I have several memories of them being washed together or next to each other in the drawer. They were almost a pain to store. Sent a picture to a friend about how one shrunk. Apparently he also had discovered one of his in his set was now shorter. There you can see the pictures of the tongs. It's already been a weird day. Curious if anyone else has had this happen too. I'm throwaway 050798 on Reddit, and the mysterious return of the missing hair scrunchie. Hello all, this is my first time posting. I've spent a lot of time reading through these but haven't had my own experience until this year. For some context, this past Christmas, my sister gifted me 2 packs of silky hair scrunchies, a pink one and a black one. I have a 5-year-old daughter, therefore we share hair accessories. Back in April on some random Thursday, I threw my daughter's hair up in a bun using my pink scrunchie as I sent her off to school. She was in preschool, so Thursdays were their last day of the week. I specifically remember asking my daughter to keep the scrunchie in her hair throughout her day of school. When I picked her up from the bus that afternoon, I remember her giving me a very sad look as she was coming off the bus. "Mom, I lost your hair tie at school," she told me. I reassured her and looked through her backpack. They used the see-through one, so I would have seen it if it were in there, just in case. She didn't wear a jacket or anything that had pockets. Not that she would have put it in her pocket. Truthfully, lol. And I ended up moving past it and forgetting all about it. Fast forward to that following Monday. I had sent her out the door for school, and that afternoon as I was just about to walk out the door to grab her from the bus, I noticed something on the ground right in front of the door. I'll be damned if it wasn't the pink scrunchie. There's just no way in hell it sat right there for 4 days without me seeing it as I vacuum every evening. I even asked my daughter when she got home if she had just not remembered bringing it back home, but she said she took it off at school and lost it. Not to mention my search for her that Friday when she came home. It still just makes no sense to me at all. But yeah, if anyone has any explanations, that would be great because my mind is still boggled over it. I'm Goblinfruitleather on Reddit, and the Fitbit duplicating and then disappearing. Hey guys, so I just experienced this yesterday as well as about a year ago. I'm not sure what it is, but I think it belongs here. So I and my mom both have old Fitbits, Flex 2. Like they're so old that they haven't sold them for a year or two at least. I've had mine for a while, and a couple of years ago I got my mom one as a gift. Anyway, each one comes with one charger, and we never ordered extras. My mom is not tech savvy and wouldn't even know how to order herself the correct charger if she had to. I never ordered a second charger for myself. Just over a year ago, she texted me randomly to ask if I somehow left my Fitbit charger at her house when I was there last April, and I told her I definitely didn't because I used mine every day. She then explained to me that she had found a second charger in her apartment. She lives alone. So she had 2 of these extremely specific and distinct chargers, and I had one. We always just thought it was a little glitch and laughed it off, until yesterday. I went to visit my mom this past week again. She lives across the country and I go there once a year. This was my first trip since the second charger showed up. I was charging my Fitbit in her house on my charger like normal, and then I put it back on and went on with the trip. A couple of days later, I realized my charger was just gone. Now I'm the type of person who rarely loses anything. Maybe lose something once every 3 to 5 years. But this by itself wouldn't have been a huge deal. Shit happens. Here are some pictures to prove that I'm not crazy. The first is the one my mom currently has. It's the one her Fitbit came with. The second is the one I have now, which is the one she had found a while back. But the fact that she had found a second charger, which was identical to mine, in her house in the past was the part that got me. I always thought her duplicating charger was crazy, but the fact that mine was just gone trips me out. There's no explanation for her acquiring another one, and it's wild to me that in her tiny apartment, where she only has guests a couple of times a year, a second one appeared. The type of charger makes it even crazier, as we don't know anyone at all with that same type of super outdated Fitbit. I don't know what to think. I looked for mine for literal hours. I know I used it there. The entire thing is just so weird. And yeah, I did take one of her 2 chargers back home with me. At the end of this collection, tell me what was the strangest or most unimaginable story. Tell me what you like the best so I can feature more specific strange types, or do you like the overall mix of strange stories? Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded. Send your strange glitchy stories to storyscary152@gmail.com.